Welcome to Learn Cut Flower Growing. Whether you are an inspiring green thumb, a busy mompreneur, or simply seeking a passion, you are in the right place. If I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I would do it smarter. And that's what I'm sharing here. I want to take years off your learning and help you bloom with confidence in your garden. Each episode, I'll share practical tips and ideas, heartfelt stories, and expert insights to help you grow and find balance in your journey. I'm Paula Rice, your cut flower farmer guide. I've been growing for 16 years, and I'm an expert in my field, literally. So grab your gardening gloves and listen to me while you work, or grab a cup of coffee and relax as you learn to manage a cut flower garden and business. How does one become a flower farmer? How do you pick that from all the choices when you're in high school and all the little tests that they give you on what you're supposed to be when you grow up? Well, it's not on there. It's nowhere on there. You just have to take hints from your life that make you wake up one day and say, oh my goodness, I really love growing flowers. I didn't know that you could actually sell them or even make a business out of that. My whole life, it was always, well, it was florists, and then flowers moved into the grocery stores, and it was roses and carnations. But that's a really good question. How do you wake up that inner flower grower? And I'll tell you, you've got to keep your eyes open and you've got to keep your ears perked. It started with me. I think it started with me and my husband. I had a beautiful vegetable garden, and we're sitting in the yard one evening, and my husband is like, Paula, are we going to eat all those flowers in the vegetable garden? I was like, oh my, it's so beautiful. I laughed. And then a time after that, I was visiting my sister, and she's my twin sister in Montana, and she is just great at always going to the bookstore and getting the latest books and bringing them home. So whenever I would go visit her with my little passel of kids, I would read all the books that she had brought home. And one of them was The Flower Farmer by Lynn Basinski. And this is way back in 2006. And I read that book and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be a flower farmer. I'm going to try this. So I went home that winter and I just did all the research I could. And there's not much out there back then on that. But there was an organization called the ASCFG. And I thought, okay, I'm going to join that organization. I mean, here I have oh my goodness, at the time I had 6 kids and I was pregnant with number 7. And I was like, I'm going to read this book. So I read that book. And the next summer I got in the vegetable garden and I planted a few flowers, and I challenged myself to order in a plug tray of asters just because I had heard people talking about plugs. And I thought, no, Paula, just order one. You're not going to get this figured out if you don't step forward and order something. So I did. And I planted some zinnias and some cosmos in the vegetable garden. And that summer, someone in the family, my husband's family, had passed away. And they were like, well, hey, Paula, do you want to provide flowers for the gathering on this, the reception, not the funeral part, just the reception? I would have been too freaked out to do the funeral part. So I was like, yeah. Okay, yeah, I can do that. And so that to me was, I don't know why. It's not like I'd sold flowers to anybody else. I'd sold flowers, I provided flowers for that. And that was just enough to encourage me. So I provided those flowers. And then the next year, I decided, okay, Paula, you need to make it to that conference, that ASCFG conference. And you need to learn more about this flower growing. And you need to, I'd look on the roster and I'm like, oh my goodness, we're actually going to go visit some flower farms. So I've got to get there and see what's going on. And because I read the book, and the book is fantastic. Lynn's book is amazing. I mean, you'd have a hard time finding a course that could go against her book, but there is nothing like showing up on a farm, seeing it firsthand, visiting with other farmers, and really seeing how they're doing it, what they're doing, and ask a lot of questions, because reading and doing can be very different. So the next summer, I joined the farmer's market, and my oldest daughter was 14 years old. And we had some flowers in the garden. We did what we did the previous year, and we baked pies all summer. I would go and get rhubarb from all of my friends' gardens and make pies because rhubarb was free. You can't even give it away. And so I made rhubarb pies and pecan pies all summer, and any flowers that I grew, I would sell down at the Bonners Ferry Farmers Market. And I sold pies like crazy. I sold pies and cinnamon rolls like crazy. And occasionally I would sell some flowers. I live in a very small town, and the gals in my town are as thrifty as I am. But I did sell some flowers, and I made enough with my daughter that summer to pay for us to travel to Raleigh, North Carolina, and go to our first conference in 2007. Yeah, that was 2007. At least I think it was 2007, 2008. And that was a really big deal. My pies really sold well. I even had one gentleman, he loved pecan pie, and I burnt them that morning. And he shows up and he goes, "You got pecan pie?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I burnt the pies this morning or yesterday." And he's like, "That's okay. I'll take it burnt." And he gets out his wallet. I'm like, no, I didn't even bring it. Oh my goodness. So that's a hard row to hoe. And I didn't continue to sell pies. I wanted to grow flowers. I loved to grow flowers. And at this point, I'm just a flower farmer. I wouldn't say I was a flower arranger. I didn't even feel confident in that aspect yet at all. No, I just wanted to grow flowers and push flowers as much as I can. So then that would be year 2. And in year 3, I challenged myself again to order some lily bulbs. Back then, lilies were very, very popular, and they need to be popular again because they have an amazing vase life and there's so much to say about them. But I ordered some lily bulbs, and there just came this point where they were like swaying in the wind, swollen and kind of colored up. And I was like, okay, here's the test, Paula Rice. You got to go sell those lily bulbs. And I mean, the Bonners Ferry Farmers Market really didn't have, wasn't going to push the 300 bulbs that I had bought. So I got my harvest taken care of that week, and I loaded it up, and I headed around to the florists in Sandpoint, which is the next town over. And there was only 2. And they did buy something. Like I walked in and I was like, "Hey, I'm Paula Rice." I introduced myself and I gave them a free sample, and I asked them, "Would you like to buy some lilies?" and things like that. And they did buy some. There was only 2, and they did buy some. So for the rest of that year, I continued to sell at the Bonners Ferry Farmers Market and then do a florist route. So I would harvest my flowers, do my little 2-person, 2-florist route. And then all the rest of the flowers went to the farmer's market. But in time, by the end of that season, I mean, I am on fire. I am like, I've got people buying my flowers. This is so amazing. And I thought, no, but I need to get better business. So I joined the Sandpoint Farmers Market, and I stayed in that farmers market for 10 years. Every Saturday to sell flowers. And there was a couple of years where I even added on their Wednesday farmers market because I had my 2 little florists. So I would harvest my flowers and I would get them in the van and I would do my little 2 florist route. Actually, I probably add a 3rd person in there. She was kind of out of the way, but I drove to her establishment, sold her flowers. And then anything that was sold or not sold, then I timed it so that I could come back to the Wednesday farmers market and sell the rest of my flowers. And that in time, I mean, it was okay. It was a smaller market, and that was a great way to get rid of my flowers. And then, of course, on Friday, I would harvest again and hit the Saturday Sandpoint Farmers Market. And that went really, really good for that year. And then in year 4, I expanded the florist route. I was growing more flowers. I had help from my kids and my nieces and nephews who would come stay with me on the farm. And I decided, I'm going to hit the road. I'm going to head into Coeur d'Alene and hit every florist there on my florist route. So I was giving up the opportunity. At first, I think I tried to do the route and then head back to the Wednesday farmers market in Sandpoint and sell anything that I didn't sell at that market. And I probably did that for a few times, but eventually they would buy enough. That worked out really good. And then I continued to do the farmers market on Saturdays and just kept growing the farmers market on Saturdays. And I really loved the energy of it. It was a good farmers market. So the following year after that, I thought, and what was interesting, okay, what is interesting about the journey of my florist route is every year when I would start up again, and my florist route expanded to 22 florists because we would actually do a loop into Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene, and the Spokane area. So we got 22 people on board eventually, and that was my biggest moneymaker by far. I think I made like $55,000 at my peak before I changed it up. I'm about to change it up again. And so that was really cool. And then I was still doing the Sandpoint Farmers Markets on Saturday. And all this time I was scaling. I was planting woodies on the farm. I was planting peonies. I have probably 3 acres of peonies, 2.5, 3 acres of peonies now, and a beautiful woodies field, all of that. And I love it when the peonies come in and we have this big cash crop. And during this time, I was also building a relationship with the wholesaler in Spokane. So eventually he would kind of call me, "What do you got, Paula?" Or I could call him when I had too much of a crop and say, "Hey, can you get this sold?" That never was super big, but it was kind of nice to have in my back pocket if I needed it. Then in 2014, I had been a member of the ASCFG since I think 2006 when I joined. 2007 was my first conference. And in 2014, I actually was on the board for my region. And that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that very much. And I ended up being a speaker in Tacoma, Washington, down in Texas, in West Virginia. And I even got a speaking gig in St. Louis where I was the all-day presenter for cut flowers. And I was the only speaker for that conference. And I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot doing that stint, gained a lot of friends in the association. In fact, I still watch them and see what they're doing and how they're changing and scaling. But overall for me, I pretty much just put my head down and decided, no, I'm going to go home and I'm going to just really focus on this flower business because I love to grow flowers. And there came the time, and I'd been trying to get a grocery store to be an account for quite some years. And grocery stores are really hard to break into. And that is a podcast all itself. That's a blog post all on its own. But I finally did break into a grocery store chain that is owned up here. And it had 9 grocery stores. So I did my math and I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity for me because I won't have to sit there and deal with florists and try to get them the colors that they want, the types of flowers that they want, because that's actually kind of a headache. I mean, it's a management issue. It's not a headache when you love it. I mean, if that's your market, that's amazing. But I could see where I was going to be able to simplify my flower growing and my flower selling, because when it comes to grocery stores, all I needed was anything that had a good enough stem length. And even in time, I managed to sell flowers, the flowers that didn't have a great stem length and they were just shorter, and I would just present them differently and I would bring them in different sized containers. So the year that I upgraded into the grocery stores was the year I quit my florist route. And on the farm side of things, that really streamlined everything. I didn't have to have someone talking to different florists and gathering orders. I didn't have to grow certain crops. It made everything a lot simpler because really you just go out and you harvest and you put everything into grocery stores and then you deliver them. And that worked out really good. So I hung on. I had a year where I would do the florist route, and then everything extra went into the grocery stores, and I left the farmer's market, which was a huge thing for me because I'd spent 10 years every Saturday at a farmer's market. And you guys, looking back, I loved the farmer's market. It is such a great beginning. And if that's your gig, that's your gig. But for me, because, I had 7 children now, and then I had 9, I had like 2 more babies during this time. And I should have left the farmer's market sooner, but I am in a very small town, 8,000 total in the entire county. So that's a challenge. A lot of people don't have quite that much of a challenge as far as selling flowers. And really that is why I ended up moving to different towns, not really doing a lot in my own local town, but moving out so that I could make more money selling my flowers and make it work. So I had upgraded to the grocery stores. I left the farmer's market. And then the following year, and hung on to the florist route because I would harvest my flowers. I would fill the florist route orders, and I dropped a lot of florists. Anyone who really just didn't buy regularly and wasn't easy to deal with, then I kind of dropped them and I took the grocery store and them. And then the following year, I even dropped them. And it felt so good to just streamline and know that, okay, now I will build this grocery store and go for it. Now that took a lot. It takes a lot of flowers to grow for a grocery store. And we scaled it to where I actually was delivering 3 times a week. And that beat out the florist route by quite a bit. And while that was happening, because I was doing the grocery store and I felt like I just have to be out with the crew to help harvest, I began to kind of dream about moving back home and just being a farmer florist. You know, I would sell to the florists and I would see how they would take, my $6, this is quite a while ago, my $6 bundle of zinnias, and they could charge 3 times that amount. And they hadn't even grown it. They just received it into their store. Now, they have a lot to deal with. I am not knocking that. They have to make their money, absolutely. But I began to think, you know what? I would like to spend more time at home and not, I love to grow on a massive level. And I actually entertained the idea of, okay, I want to be a farmer florist. I want to take all the little bits that I have and do the farmer florist thing. Oh, you guys, I need to throw in here really quick. We have to back up just a little bit because before I left the farmer's market, I built a farm stand. Oh gosh, I cannot forget this. I built a farm stand. And I could not believe how many people came to my farm stand. And that is why I traded my farm stand out for the farmer's market. I created a different market to replace that. And then with the florist route, I traded that out for the grocery route. So as I moved, I traded up. I finally got the grocery store. I chose it because it was easier, simpler, less hassle, and it had the potential to make more money. And then I penciled out the farmer's market and I tried my farm stand. And after one season, I could see that, okay, I actually can walk away from the farmer's market. And the farm stand itself is a whole podcast episode as well. But you can see how as I moved forward, I just kind of looked at the new opportunities, penciled it out. What could I do to, change up what I was doing and move into a more stable market that I enjoyed? So I loved growing flowers. So the grocery stores worked for me. And then I was tired of going to the farmer's market and the farm stand was just wonderful. And then I thought, okay, what if this farmer florist, I could really scale that up and have a crew run the grocery store. So that was my next move. And then we had COVID happen. And oddly enough, as scared as I was of anyone, I wasn't scared, but it's like, oh my goodness, what if one of us gets sick and we can't get these flowers where they go? I mean, we all felt that. But the grocery store sales, that's where we really powerhoused because the flowers were not as available from California and South America to the grocery stores because of that. And so my local route really beefed up and really became, we did so good that year. We sold absolutely every flower that I could produce, and we did not throw it into the compost pile because of that. And they were grateful that I could get my flowers there, and people were buying flowers left and right because they couldn't see people. So that was kind of a saving grace for me on that end. So we started moving towards becoming a farmer florist. So I was coming back to being local. I was like, you know what? I grew really big. I want to grow really small again. And I want to grow as few flowers as possible and make the most money per stem as I can. And I know that lies in the realm of being a farmer florist. Doing designs for funerals and weddings and all of that. And I had spent a few years taking lots of courses, quite a few years. I'd actually started that a long time ago, practicing and learning. And I finally had the confidence where I was like, yeah, I want to do this. So I was going to be scaling down and growing way less and making more per stem. But I had this year where I was like, okay, I'm not positive, I've got to build this up. So I'll keep the grocery store going while I focus on the farmer florist. And that was a tough year. That was a really tough year because I had been, the operator, I'm in the dirt. I am right there trying to run a business. Super hard place to be. And then I was the manager, like I am out in the field. And so here I am needing to step back from that and build the farmer florist section of my business, which meant websites, which meant streamlined processes, accepting orders. Are we going to deliver? And exploring all the avenues of where we could sell flowers. And so we did it. I did it. I'm like, okay, I'm getting orders. This is kind of amazing. And I was just going to really take that leap of faith. Actually, I didn't. I was going to take the leap of faith and say, okay, you're done, Paula. You've gotten to where you want to be. You have a good indication that you'll be able to be a farmer florist in your town here and get weddings and things like that. But I didn't quite let go of the thought of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I don't have my grocery store flowers? And so I kind of planted for that. And oh my goodness, the next stage of this business is lightning struck. It's like, God's like, hey, Paula, we've got an idea over here, because I was beginning to wake up to being smaller, and I'm getting more mission oriented because somewhere along the line, this was tough. When I look back, I think I got sidetracked, me trying to come back and being small and getting back to where I was growing flowers. I really started to feel like I wanted to start playing with the flowers and bringing, just the joy. I wanted to be a farmer florist. I wanted to deliver flowers. I wanted to send that message. And I always felt that. But I had such a passion for growing huge quantity of flowers. Like I stood in my peony field and I was just praising God. I was like, this is so amazing. I would be in my van driving down the road, and it's just so, you couldn't fit another bucket of flowers in that van. And I was praising God, thinking, this is amazing. I love what I do. But lots of time had passed and my kids were growing up, and I'm like, yeah, I want to step into this next stage and play with the flowers that I grow, be a farmer florist. And yeah, lightning struck. Like I had a lot go wrong that really helped me to see that I'm supposed to go in a different way. I'm supposed to be on mission. At the end of 2022, I really started to go on mission. Like, I look back and this journey has been long and hard, longer and harder than it should have been. And I want to help growers and people who want to grow flowers and bring beauty into the world and share the joy of flowers with other people. I want to make it easier. Okay. I feel like, Paula, why would you say that? Like, I got to go help people because that seems like a strong thing to say, but it was hard. It's not easy. And I'm on mission to make it easier for people. I want to take out years of their learning. I want to talk about places where they can sell their flowers and places that they can streamline and how they can reach their customers so that they can get there sooner, that they do not lose the joy of growing and selling their cut flowers. I really am on mission for that. And so 2023 year popped up and I was really having a hard time letting go of the grocery store, not feeling safe. And all hell broke loose. Like, what's the worst possible thing that could happen on your farm? The worst, like just go there. It happened to me. And I'm going to share that in the next episode, you guys. Thank you so much for joining in and listening to this beginning story, my journey of how I blew up and grew lots and lots of flowers. And as we walk forward, I want to scale way, way down and get back to the nitty gritty. And I want to share with you everything I've learned. So thanks for listening today, you guys. And we will see you in the next episode. Remember to like our podcast, download it if you need to, and we will see you next time.